Why am I looking at a PlayStation 1 here? Well, this is something that someone gave me recently. They were clearing out some junk and they had a bunch of stuff, and I said, can I look? And I said, can I have this? They said, sure. And yeah, long story short, that's how I ended up with this. So this is a stock PlayStation 1. One of the issues with these is they have a hard time reading CDs after a while. But here we are playing the CD player, and I have a burned CD in here. If I turn the volume on the PVM up, okay, that's the music from the CD, so no trouble playing that CD, which is great. There it is, burned CD. So, yeah, this thing works. And, you know, one of the problems is I don't have any PlayStation 1 games anymore. I had a PlayStation 1. This is one of the earlier models. It has the parallel I/O and the serial I/O connectors that I think never ended up getting used by anything. I got 2 controllers with it, no memory cards. And let's flip this baby over and take a look here. It's an NTSC SCPH5501. So not the earliest models, that's for sure. November 1997 is the date here. But yeah. So what I thought about doing with this PlayStation is testing out some of the homebrew stuff that's out there available for it. Being a 5501, it's definitely not too hard to mod this one. The later PS1s, which are the small ones that were out when the PlayStation 2s were out, those had a little bit of anti-mod technology, but these early ones didn't. Now, if anyone remembers mod chips back in the day, they were PIC microcontrollers that someone wrote some code that basically just injected a data stream into one of the I/O pins of some processor or whatnot that would allow it to read copied disks. And, you know, obviously a lot of piracy was going on. That was the main reason for it. But there was a homebrew scene as well that, you know, you needed to have a mod chip to play homebrews. But also, these consoles are region locked, meaning Japanese consoles can't play American games or PAL games or vice versa, or US consoles can only play US games. So one of the things is, even with legitimate PlayStation discs, if you needed a mod chip if you wanted to be able to boot up these other discs. So what's happened is there's something called the PSNI, and this is a mod chip that's actually open source, and it runs on an ATmega, or I'm sorry, an ATmega or an Atmel microcontroller, and basically it takes the place of this PIC. And I think this happened because source code for one of the original PIC mod chips was released, and people just looked at it and saw how it worked, and then just replicated the functionality in with the Atmel chips. So here it is loaded into the Arduino IDE. And what I'm going to do is use this little Arduino microcontroller here. It's some kind of a clone Pro Mini or something like that. And I'm not going to bother soldering the pins onto it, but I need to flash the code onto it. So the easiest way to do that is using one of these little USB to serial adapters, is just shove the pins into the holes, which, at least with the adapter I have, works perfectly with the standard for Arduinos. And I just set my little serial board to 3.3 volts, which is what this board is going to run at inside the PlayStation, although this supports either 5 or 3.3. And I just have to set up the COM port and the type of board on here. So we go to here, and of course, COM port 7. Board type is an Atmega 328, 3.3 volts, 8 megahertz. That just happens to be what these are. And it's a Pro or Pro Mini. And that's basically it. So I just burned the code, or flashed this with the code, and it worked. So now I'm going to take apart this PlayStation, and I'm going to solder this in, and let's see what happens. In usual Sony fashion, to remove covers of things, you just look for screws that have little arrows pointing to them, and this happened to have several here. And the top cover just lifted right off. So let's keep going. Okay, well, that was annoying. You remove this metal plate off the top of the PlayStation, and you have to take the CD-ROM drive out. And the power connector, which is a surface one, goes on like that. I carefully removed it, and it ripped right off the board. So luckily, the traces aren't damaged, and I will be able to fix that. But it's almost like it was all soldered. To see these little tabs on the side here will hold the connector down, and then those are the pins. And it all just sort of gave way. Anyways, have to repair that. So I found these instructions online on how to install the mod chip, and it has to go exactly with the PlayStation model you're dealing with. So remember, mine's that 5501 model. And these are my instructions to do it. So basically there's 6 wires and it shows exactly where to solder them all. And this goes on the underside of the board. So take your motherboard out of your PlayStation and basically get ready for soldering. So here's my board, and this is the area here where you're gonna do the soldering. So there you go, see it sort of matches there. And I've already done the soldering. So basically I just attached some various length wires here, and these are the solder points. And it's all pretty easy. You just take your soldering iron and I would re-tin these spots. Use some lead solder, it's much easier to use. Then use something like a flux pen and put some flux down there. And then you just sort of touch the wire. This is sort of what you would use for mod wire, I guess. Looks like this. It's a spool of it. It's very thin. And you just touch the wire to the joint and with some solder on the tip, and it will melt the kind of insulation off the wire at the same time, and it will solder it on. So I think these are all pretty good connections. And what I like to do personally is I will put a dab of hot glue on everything just to make sure that it's insulated and also basically gonna stay on there, because obviously if you move these around too much it might break them off. Okay, so I've soldered up the Arduino board to the PlayStation, and the way you do this is basically with the instructions I have here with the wires. You see the pinouts there. All of those are used except for reset switch, and this is on my particular unit, so you just have to find the right instructions that tell you where the pinouts. So I'm not using pin 4. I had soldered a wire onto there and I just removed it. But the rest of these are on here. So how do I know how to hook these up to the Arduino? Well, you see the names there: gate, data, reset switch, which is not used, door switch, which is lid, ground, VDD. Well, here on the instructions for the code that's running on our Arduino, we're just using these Arduino pinouts here. So data, gate, lid, and these two, BIOS and BIOS D2, are only used on the PAL units if you read the copy here. So it's really just these 3, and obviously VCC and ground are labeled on here, so I know how to connect those to the Arduino board. So on this particular one, the raw is the VCC, ground is ground, and then we have the gate, data, and the switch connector, which is on 9, 8, and 10. 8, 9, 10 right there, those 3. So that's it. This is all connected now. So theoretically, if I power up this board, the light should come on the Arduino here, and we should have a modded PlayStation. We'll see if this works. All right, PlayStation board is just laying inside the case here. I have the Arduino just sort of hanging out the side. I have the video connector hooked up. I do have the power connector hooked up. Don't have the CD drive hooked up. Yes, and I did repair this connector here. It's not the prettiest job in the world, but that is repaired. All right, let me get the power cord and plug this in. Please be careful if you're going to turn your PlayStation on without the cover on. This is a mains transformer, which is running at 110 volts in my case, or 120 if you're in a country with that kind of power. So do not touch anything there. All right, I just want to make sure that this turns on and doesn't smoke. So here we go. Okay, Arduino is running. PlayStation is coming online. Great, the CD drive's not hooked up, so nothing's going to work. But theoretically, the way this works is when it senses that the lid is closed, which is this switch right here, that tells this thing to do its thing, and it starts inserting those codes, which allow it to kind of confuse the BIOS and boot the CD no matter what region it's from or what kind of disk it is. So let me hook this thing back up. I'm just going to loosely connect it all, and we're going to see what happens. Okay, I'm back, and I'm sorry about the noise. My furnace is on. It is winter in Portland, and that thing's what keeps me warm upstairs. So I'm back and this is working, and I did some troubleshooting, and it had nothing to do with my wiring or my soldering. Of course, I redid all of that, and it wasn't any of those things. It was that I was using the wrong version of PS&E. This is the open source mod chip, and I was using the V6 one, and I started reading through the forums, and it seems like that version, which is the most recent, is designed specifically for the PAL version. So I hadn't connected a couple lines that said it was for the PAL version only, and I looked at the code more carefully, and it definitely had some subroutines there where it was waiting for certain triggers from the PAL BIOS to actually initiate the injection. Well, of course, I'm not using the PAL version. I'm using the NTSC console, and therefore that was never happening. So I could have modified that, but I just loaded the the old original version, which was on the thread. It'll all be in the description of this video, so you can go and see it and download this code for yourself. So this is all assembled very shoddily. The CD drive is just sitting on here, but it's connected. Mod chip is here, connected, and everything's connected. And let's hit the, oh, okay, so what I have to do is if I power it up, I have to push the switch here so it thinks the lid is closed. And on a PlayStation, if it's not reading the disc properly, it just goes to the CD player, and that is where you end up. But when you see this with Sony Computer Entertainment America or Europe or Japan, you know things are working. So this mod chip is doing its thing. I just want to show you where I actually decided to put this. I just hot melt glued the Arduino right there. The wires come out there. I just put a little glue on there to keep it from, you know, touching the metal. But yeah, it's ugly, but that's a little dead space inside the case, and it's perfect. Well, that's a wrap. PlayStation is successfully modded. The mod chip is in there. Now if I turn this on. Anyone who had a PlayStation growing up just knows that sound. It's ingrained in your head. And then this. That sound. You know things are working. So very cool. So that mod chip works, the PSNI. Find the information for the link and stuff in the description of the video. And just shows how easy it is to do this. All you need is an Arduino Pro Mini, which is, what, $1 or $2 off of, you know, eBay, wherever, from China. Program it with your computer, load the code on, solder it on. You just need to get some interconnect wire, some of this thin red stuff, hook that on, and you've got yourself a PlayStation that you can finally use to play import games and homebrew. Let's just call it that. Anyways, thanks for watching. If you found this interesting, thumbs up. Sorry about the shaky cam. I've been using my cell phone for this video. Anyways, subscribe for more. Bye-bye.